everyone. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Crystal.
And we are Sisters She Wrote. Our first video is about Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And Dee Dee was born 1967 on May 3rd as Claudine Petra at Chackabay, Louisiana. I do not know if I'm saying her last name or that city right.
As a child, she would often commit petty theft if things did not go her way. In 1986, she was named ROTC Military Queen, and I believe that's from her high school, but I'm not sure. As an early adult, she worked as a nurse's aide.
Okay, so sometime after high school, Dee Dee was at a bowling alley and met a man named Rod, and they ended up dating.
A few weeks later.
Yeah.
And when she was 24, she found out she was pregnant. Rod was 17. Now, Rod would say that she would practice witchcraft, and she even had a pet tarantula.
So after they had the baby, Dee Dee liked the name Gypsy, and Rod liked the name, he liked Guns N' Roses. So that's how they came up with her name, and Gypsy Rose was born on July 1st, 1991.
She was born premature. Now, shortly after she was born, Rod decided to leave Dee Dee. He just decided that he made a mistake and he didn't want to be with her anymore.
When Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee said she had sleep apnea and that she needed a breathing machine.
When Gypsy was 7 or 8, I'm not sure on what age, she was in a motorcycle accident with her grandfather. She had an abrasion on her knee, which her mother would say she would need several surgeries to repair.
When Gypsy was in kindergarten or second grade, we're not sure which one, she was taken out of school, and Dee Dee claimed that she was homeschooling her. And when Gypsy was 5 years old, she was put in a wheelchair because she was told she couldn't walk anymore.
Dee Dee would go on to say that she had chromosome issues, which would lead to a lot of her problems.
Due to her premature birth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She also says that she would probably not survive past 18. In 2001, Gypsy was named honorary queen in the Crew of Mid-City Parade, which is during Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and that is a parade that children are part of.
It's a child-oriented parade. And in 2005, they lost their home to Hurricane Katrina. So after they lost their home in Hurricane Katrina, they moved into a shelter with people with medical problems. And with their home, they lost all of Gypsy's medical records and her birth certificate.
Yeah. And shortly after that, they moved to Missouri after speaking to a doctor in the Ozarks who told them they should do so. After moving to Missouri, they lived in a rental home in Aurora. In 2007, Gypsy was named Child of the Year by an Olay Foundation, which is... Do you remember?
It is to advocate for people with feeding tubes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And in 2008, the Habitat for Humanity built them a new home on the corner of Hope and Volunteer Way. And in 2009, Gypsy sang at the American Cancer Society.
But also, Habitat Humanity, not only did they build them a home, they also put a special ramp in for Gypsy to use with her wheelchair. And they also put in a hot tub.
Yes.
Now, want to get back to Rod a little bit and give a little bit of more of an explanation on him. Rod was never really able to see Gypsy. He did continue to pay child support, which was $1,200 every single month. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Dee Dee would often go and tell her neighbors that Rod was abusive, he was a drug addict, and he was an alcoholic.
And Dee Dee's father and her stepmother said that she was a very filthy person. This is a little bit of backstory into who Dee Dee is. They said she was a very filthy person. She wrote bad checks. She opened up credit cards in her father's name, racked up debt, and even had a warrant out for her arrest. Her family suspects that she started poisoning her stepmother, and after that she changed her name slightly to Dee Dee instead of Claudine, thank you for that. I forgot her name.
The family believes she even killed her own mother by starving her to death.
Yes. So Dee Dee and Gypsy got paid vacations to Disneyland and other places. They even got tickets to a Miranda Lambert concert, and her husband Blake Shelton was there as well. And Gypsy got pictures with them. She got to meet them, and she even talked with Miranda Lambert. And Miranda Lambert even went as far as to give Gypsy $3,500 from her own personal bank account. All of her fees and for flights to doctors were paid for. She didn't even have to pay for a flight to her doctors.
When Dee Dee would take Gypsy to the doctor, she would tell Gypsy to not talk. She would tell her to just play with their doll and don't move her legs.
And to act like a child too.
Oh yeah, and act like a child.
And she just has a ton of health disorders that she had.
Her mom would claim that she would have anyway.
Yes. There was leukemia, for one, that her mom said she had leukemia. She had feeding disorders. She had to have, obviously, a feeding tube. Her mom said she was paralyzed.
Yep. She had muscular dystrophy, asthma,
seizures,
epilepsy.
Yeah. Yep. Vision impaired, hearing disabilities.
GI reflux. They said, or she said, she was quadriplegic. She had anemia, hypoventilation, which I have no idea what that is.
Allergies.
Yeah. She had mild mental retardation. She was incontinent. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had lung disease and a heart murmur. Now, I'm pretty sure that there's tons more, but these are the ones that I could find.
And she had a bunch of surgeries as well.
Yeah. And the horrific part to me is that she would have to go every 6 months to the ER and have the port in her stomach ripped out and a new one put back in, which she said was very painful.
And with Dee Dee claiming that Gypsy had leukemia, Dee Dee would even take Gypsy into the hospital and get her daughter, she would shave her head and actually get her daughter leukemia treatments.
Yeah, chemotherapy.
Yeah, chemotherapy.
She had a lot of different drugs that she would take.
She was brought to the hospital over 100 times, and every time her doctor changed, she would change her medical history.
So if she went to see a cardiologist, suddenly her entire family have had heart attacks or had heart disease, would have strokes, you name it.
Yeah. And she had to have an oxygen tank with her wherever she went. And she also had to, her mom, Dee Dee, took her to get her saliva glands treated with Botox. and got her glands removed because she wouldn't stop drooling. And the reason why she wouldn't stop drooling is because Dee Dee would put a topical anesthetic on her gums and make her drool. And then she would have to get tubes put into Gypsy's ears as well for ear infections.
Yeah. Also, when Gypsy would be in public, if she did not act a certain way, Dee Dee would grab her hand and squeeze it. In fact, actually, usually when she was in public, you would always see Dee Dee holding Gypsy's hand.
And when Gypsy would act out at home, she would get beaten with a clothes hanger or with the back or with her mom's palm.
No. Now, one doctor doubted Dee Dee. He thought she was a victim of Munchausen by proxy, which is basically when a person like Dee Dee, the mom, would say that her daughter, Gypsy, had a lot of problems when there was absolutely nothing wrong with her. And usually they did this for attention. If they couldn't get it themselves, they would put it off on somebody else so that they could get attention.
Yes. Munchausen disorder is where you pretend or you feel you force side effects on yourself to make you have that disorder, but Munchausen by proxy is where you force that disorder on someone else.
Yeah, and even Gypsy in videos that I had watched said she was never 100% sure what her mom was giving her. And in fact, actually, some of the medications they found out were causing a lot of the symptoms that she was having. And so if she had never even been on any of these medications, half the things that were happening to her would never have happened. Just like the saliva glands being removed. She would still have those today.
Yeah, and I saw a picture too on a video I was watching as well of a pantry cupboard that was completely full from floor to the ceiling with meds that were supposedly taken daily by Gypsy. At one point, I'm not sure how old Gypsy was by this time, but she ended up running away at a sci-fi convention with her friend. And she was, and Dee Dee found her after, she found her when she was gone for 4 hours. And when Dee Dee found her, she told Gypsy after they got home that if she ever ran away again, she would later break her fingers with a hammer. And she chained her to a bed for hours.
She actually chained her to a bed for 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks.
During the entire time, she wasn't feeding her.
Oh.
She was, I believe she was also not giving her medication, but I'm not sure on that one.
Well, she wasn't giving her medication because obviously she didn't need it.
Right. Dee Dee went as far as to get a lawyer that she brought over to the house, and I guess she showed some sort of documentation to this lawyer showing that Gypsy was not of sound mind, and if Gypsy were to ever try and run away again, she could use this documentation that this lawyer drew up to make sure that Gypsy would be brought home.
And Gypsy was asked about her mother, like how her mother treats her, and Gypsy said that her mom was a unique but is very overprotective, and that's how she describes her mom. And on her 18th birthday, her dad called her to wish her happy birthday for her 18, and her mom told the father, she said, you can wish her a happy birthday, but don't tell her she's 18. And wouldn't allow the dad to tell her that she was 18.
Yeah, she said that she believed that Gypsy was 14 years old and that she didn't need to know she was 18. A psychologist says that Munchausen by proxy should be considered child abuse, and especially in this case, yeah.
And so after all of this abuse that she's been going through with her mom, and she's been keeping this all a secret, she starts asking her friends about dating. Because her friends, they're around 18 years old, so they start dating men. So she gets curious about boys and starts asking about them. Her mom forbids this, says, no, you're too young for that. Well, she starts asking a friend about it, and her friend tells her to go on to a Christian dating website where she meets Nick Godejohn. I do not know if I'm saying his last name right.
Yeah, Godejohn.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gypsy was never left alone. Her mom was always there. But she would find time when her mom was sleeping, and she would get online and she'd start chatting with Nick. And their friendship or their romance blossomed from there. It went as far as him telling her that he was into BDSM, and that he had multiple personalities.
And the more they started talking, they began to plan their wedding, and they also had their children's names picked out.
Yeah. So to match Nick's personalities, Gypsy came up with her own personalities. One of them is Kitty, which is
little girl side.
Yeah. Candy,
the evil side.
Yeah. And Ruby,
the naughty side.
Yeah.
I wonder how naughty Ruby was.
I have seen pictures of her in all of her different personalities, and some of them are very, very racy. Yeah. I'm not going to show those.
Okay. And a little bit of background on Nick. He was, in 2013, he was actually arrested at a McDonald's for watching porn.
He was there for 9 hours. He was asked to leave several times, and he refused to leave. And apparently, during this entire 9 hours, he was fondling himself in a McDonald's with...
Yeah, and then he was diagnosed with autism and Asperger's.
Yeah. So they had 3 plans for them to be able to be together, so that everybody could see that they were together anyway, not just privately. One of them was Plan A, and that was they were going to meet in a movie theater, which did eventually happen. She sent him money to stay in a hotel, and they planned on meeting at this movie theater. Now, when Dee Dee met him, she didn't like him. She thought he was weird. She thought, why is this man without any kids coming to see a kids movie? Which, by the way, they went and seen the live action Cinderella.
And they also had sex in the bathroom while the mother was watching the movie.
Yeah, and in the men's bathroom.
Plan B of being together, since if that didn't, after that was effect, that they would get pregnant, and then that the mother would have no choice but to let Nick remain in Gypsy's life.
Yeah, and later I watched Nick's trial, and Gypsy testified at the trial, and she said that his mom refused to let them get pregnant, and so that ended up not being an option. So they ended up having to go with Plan C, which was to kill Dee Dee.
And so Gypsy sent money to Nick to come and kill her mom, and Gypsy asked him to kill her. I guess they had gotten in, Dee Dee and Gypsy got into a fight earlier that day and were arguing, and they had made up, and they decided to paint each other's nails, and they wanted to paint each other's nails red, but they didn't have red, So they decided on pink.
Well, Nick wanted red nails on Gypsy when he arrived. He wanted her to look a certain way for him, and he wanted red nails. They didn't have red, so she asked if pink was okay, and pink was, so she did. It was a hot pink, I believe.
Okay. And after they were done painting their nails, Dee Dee went to bed, and the last words to Gypsy was, "Don't hurt me."
Mm-hmm. She was also supposed to put on lip gloss, and it was also, I believe, supposed to be red, but again, she didn't have red, so she asked if pink was okay, and pink was, so she wore a pink lip gloss. He also asked her what she was going to be wearing, and I don't remember her answer. I think it was that she was going to be wearing some comfy pajamas. And I think that's what she wore.
Yeah. So later that night, Nick comes over, and Gypsy gives duct tape and gloves and a knife to Nick at the back door.
Which she got the knife apparently by shoplifting at Walmart.
So after she gives Nick the goods at the door, she goes into the bathroom and waits.
She covers her ears.
Yeah, she sits down. She says she sits down in the fetal position with her knees to her chest, and she puts her hands over her ears and starts to hum. Yeah. And she
hears screams from her mom's room. She heard her name. She heard her mom called Gypsy a couple of times, and then she hears some moaning. She said she also heard some sounds of her mom waking up, and then some sounds that she couldn't really make out. In questioning, he was asked if he did rape Dee Dee, and he proceeded to say no, and that it would be disgusting if he did.
So supposedly, since Nick wanted to rape her mom, she suggested to Nick, "How about you rape me instead?" And so after Nick killed Dee Dee, they had sex, and apparently he bit her a couple times, Gypsy.
Yeah, which I believe that Nick stabbed Dee Dee 17 times.
And then, Nick made Gypsy clean up the blood and everything, and they also took $4,000 of cash and decided to run.
Yeah, and that $4,000 cash was in Dee Dee's safe.
Yes. So after that they went to a hotel for a couple days, and they actually mailed the knife that killed Dee Dee to Nick's house.
Yeah,
and it was covered in blood with the bloody gloves inside the mail too.
Yeah, and Gypsy says that it was her idea to do that because she was afraid that if she got on the bus with a knife, that she would obviously be suspect. So she did not want to do that, so she decided to mail the knife to Godejohn's house.
Yes, because the plan was, after they spent the night a couple nights in the hotel, then they took the bus to Wisconsin and stayed there.
They were going to be staying with Godejohn's mother.
Okay. And then, so on June 15th, 2015, there is a Facebook post on Dee Dee's wall, I believe it is, or the family's wall, or Gypsy's wall.
Yeah, they had a shared Facebook account. After the Facebook post, some people were kind of scared for Dee Dee and Gypsy. They thought something was wrong, so they called the police and asked them to do a welfare check. They found Dee Dee in bed on her stomach with stab wounds to her back, and they found Gypsy's wheelchair and all of her meds. Nothing was missing. The only thing that was not there was Gypsy.
So the police assumed that Gypsy was hurt, that they didn't know. So people actually started a GoFundMe account to help raise money for Dee Dee's funeral and to hopefully try to find Gypsy or figure out where she went. Yeah. And while the cops were investigating it, they actually found a surveillance video of them getting on the bus in the bus station. And Gypsy was seen walking, pulling a suitcase with Nick and walking up to the front desk and buying bus tickets. And the cops were completely shocked about this because she was supposed to be paralyzed. And when they started telling people about it, when they started telling their friends and neighbors, asking if they knew where Gypsy would go, the friends and family members were super upset that they found out she could walk and that they had been blackmailing, that their family had been blackmailing their neighbors for years.
They've been
tricking
them.
Tricking them
out
of money.
Money. I mean, they were getting thousands upon thousands of dollars, not just from friends, neighbors, from people who didn't even know them. They were sending them money. And meanwhile, she was putting away money for who knows what. I don't know. She had $4,000 in a safe.
Yeah.
And she had, I guess, so much money that, I mean, Gypsy, it was easy for her to get money. I mean, they ended up finding Nick and Gypsy at Nick's home. They were taken into custody into questioning anyway, June 15th, 2015 at 10:40 p.m. The police sent in a police unit and started calling up the stairs for them to come down, and there was no response for a few minutes. And then Gypsy got up, got dressed, and yelled down the stairs that she was coming downstairs. And shortly after going downstairs, Godejohn got up and got dressed and went downstairs as well. There was canine units on scene. They did a search of his room and found the envelope with a knife in it, which was the murder weapon. Yep. So they immediately knew who did it. Yeah, like they knew. They were also very surprised to see her walking, even though they had seen her walking in the video. She was walking, and she was walking like she had never been in a wheelchair before.
Yeah, and the police, when they started questioning Gypsy, and they actually told her that your mother's dead, and she actually started crying, and she was upset that she started to try to pretend like she didn't know that her mom was dead.
Yeah, it was funny because during the entire questioning, she went from crying and being upset to completely normal. So I think just with that, they also knew she had something to do with it, that it wasn't just Nick. But meanwhile, Nick is confessing.
Yeah.
He's giving them pretty much every detail they need.
Yeah, he ends up confessing to the whole thing about what they did, and so there's no more case against them, and they go to trial. And the trial begins, and they are charged. Nick is charged with first-degree murder, and Gypsy is charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah. Now, Gypsy pled guilty, and she went to, I believe it's called a post-trial, where the judge sentenced her to 10 years in prison, and she will be due to release for parole, early parole. She's due to be released in 2024.
Yeah, and and Nick got sentenced to life in prison. Yep. Without the possibility of parole, I think. Right?
And his trial, or his sentencing anyway, just happened last month. It was February of 2019, and he was sentenced to life in prison. And a lot of people are actually really upset that Gypsy got 10 years. They thought that she should have gotten off time served. She had been in jail for quite a while already, and then all of that, everything she had gone through her entire life, the torture her mom put her under, that they believe that she should have gone free.
Yeah, I don't think she should have been punished as much as she was. She should have gotten off with a lighter sentence just because of everything that her mom put her through for all those years. And even also when the cops were questioning her, it came out her real age, that she turned out to be 21 when she actually committed these murders, and she thought she was 16.
Yeah.
And
she never knew exactly how old she was. Yeah. Because her mom would constantly tell her
different days, different years she was born.
She never knew. Her family was questioned in a documentary by HBO, and the family says that she got what she deserved.
After she was cremated, after the autopsy and the case was closed, when they released her body, they asked like who wanted her ashes or who was going to perform like a funeral, and her family just said that she got what she deserved, and they told the coroner to flush her ashes down the toilet.
Gypsy is now 27 years old, and she's thriving in prison. And I think it might have been actually the best thing that had ever happened to her. She's gotten her GED.
She said she's happier than ever in prison. She's the happiest she's ever been.
Yeah. So. Which from a young age, she was tortured on a daily basis, in my opinion. So,
yeah,
that's understandable.
Yeah. And now she can walk. She doesn't have to pretend to wheel around in the wheelchair and pretend not to move her legs.
Yeah. She said that during this entire time when her mom would be in bed, she would get out of the wheelchair and she'd walk around. And she said also that Nick would encourage her to get up and walk as much as she could. What the doctor that was suspect also, sorry, I forgot about this, but he believed, or he said, that if a person were to come to him with muscular dystrophy, they would have no muscles in their legs. They would be completely gone. But she had so much muscle in her legs, he was very confused by that. And that's what led him to believe that she was a victim of Munchausen by proxy. Anyway, thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you. And we hope to see you on our next video.